It feels like loss at first. People drift away. Connections weaken. Conversations feel forced. And your heart whispers, "Why is everything slipping?" But what if nothing is being taken from you? What if Allah is simply lifting you into a higher version of yourself? Sometimes growth feels like grief, because you are not losing them. You are outgrowing who you used to be. What once felt familiar begins to press against your heart in ways you cannot ignore. The places, conversations, and routines that once comforted you now leave you feeling drained instead of fulfilled. You cannot explain the shift clearly, but you feel it deeply. Allah allows this heaviness so you notice that your inner world has changed. Growth always announces itself through discomfort before clarity arrives. The heart senses misalignment long before the mind understands it. You may return to familiar environments hoping to feel the same ease you once did, but something feels off. The laughter does not reach you. The connection feels forced. This is not ingratitude. It is awareness forming quietly within you. Allah expands the heart, and expansion makes old spaces feel tight. What once fit perfectly now presses painfully. The heaviness is not sudden, it builds over time. Each interaction leaves a subtle weight behind until the heart can no longer ignore it. Allah uses this accumulation to awaken you gently. If comfort remained, growth would be delayed. The discomfort is not meant to punish you. It is meant to move you. You begin to notice that certain conversations exhaust you rather than inspire you. Words repeat without meaning. Energy circulates without purpose. Allah removes nourishment from what no longer feeds your soul. This loss of satisfaction is a sign of elevation, not loss. There is confusion at first because familiarity is comforting, even when it no longer serves you. You wonder why something good now feels wrong. Allah teaches that goodness is seasonal. What was right for you before may not be right for who you are becoming. Growth requires new environments to breathe. Your heart starts craving stillness after being in places that once felt alive. You need time alone to recover emotionally. Allah creates this need so you recognize what drains you. Awareness is the first form of protection. You may feel guilty for feeling heavy in familiar spaces. You question your gratitude. But Allah does not grow hearts through guilt. He grows them through truth. The heaviness is not rejection, it is redirection. Old habits begin to feel burdensome. Routines feel mechanical rather than meaningful. Allah removes the comfort from repetition so you stop moving on autopilot. Conscious living begins when unconscious patterns stop satisfying the soul. You start longing for depth even when surrounded by noise. Silence feels safer than conversation. Allah draws you inward so you can hear what truly matters. This inward pull is not isolation, it is preparation. The heart becomes sensitive to energy. You notice tension where you once ignored it. Allah sharpens discernment by heightening emotional awareness. This sensitivity is a gift, even if it feels overwhelming at first. You feel restless without knowing why. The familiar no longer grounds you. Allah allows restlessness to push you toward growth. Comfort keeps you still. Heaviness creates movement. Certain relationships feel heavy not because they are bad, but because they are no longer aligned. Allah does not label people as wrong. He simply shifts direction. Alignment changes without blame. The familiar begins to feel restrictive. You sense limitations where freedom once existed. Allah expands your capacity, and expansion always reveals constraints. What once held you now holds you back. You may attempt to force comfort, hoping the feeling will pass. But Allah does not reverse growth. Once awareness arrives, return is no longer possible. The heart cannot unknow what it now knows. Heaviness teaches honesty. You stop pretending things feel right when they do not. Allah removes your tolerance for misalignment. Truth becomes easier than comfort. You begin questioning why you stay in places that weigh on you. Allah places this question gently in your heart. He does not push you out. He invites you forward. There is sadness in realizing you have outgrown something familiar. Loss accompanies growth. Allah allows grief so you release with sincerity, not resentment. Letting go becomes sacred when done with awareness. The heaviness makes you protective of your energy. You choose rest over routine, peace over presence. Allah teaches boundaries through discomfort, not instruction. You start noticing how your soul responds to different environments. Some lift you, some drain you. Allah trains you to listen to your inner state as guidance. What once felt like home now feels temporary. This is not instability, it is transition. Allah shifts your sense of belonging before He shifts your surroundings. The heaviness is a signal, not a sentence. Allah is showing you that you are growing beyond what once defined you. Familiarity fades, so purpose can emerge. You crave depth instead of noise, and this craving arrives quietly. The things that once entertained you no longer satisfy your heart. Loud conversations, constant chatter, and surface-level interactions leave you feeling empty rather than energized. Allah changes what feeds your soul before He changes your surroundings. This shift is subtle, but it is powerful. Your heart is asking for meaning, not stimulation. You begin to feel tired after conversations that go nowhere. Words are exchanged, laughter happens, but something feels missing inside you. This is not arrogance or judgment. It is your soul realizing it needs more than sound to feel alive. Allah refines the heart by changing its appetite. Noise once distracted you from yourself. Now it overwhelms you. You find peace in quiet moments, reflective pauses, and sincere dialogue. Allah pulls you away from distraction so you can reconnect with purpose. Silence becomes nourishing, not lonely. You notice that depth feels rare, but when you find it, it feels like home. A meaningful conversation lingers in your heart, far longer than hours of empty talk. Allah teaches you quality over quantity in connection. Your heart no longer settles for less. You may feel misunderstood when you pull away from noise. Others may think you are distant or uninterested, but Allah knows you are protecting your inner world. Growth often looks like withdrawal before it looks like strength. Your interests change without announcement. What once amused you now feels shallow. What once felt intense now feels pointless. Allah elevates the heart by removing attraction to what no longer aligns with growth. You begin seeking conversations that nourish the soul. Discussions about faith, purpose, and self-awareness draw you in. Allah aligns your heart with what brings you closer to Him. Depth becomes a form of worship. Small talk feels heavier than silence. You would rather say nothing than speak without meaning. Allah teaches you that words carry weight, and unnecessary speech drains the heart. Stillness becomes intentional. You start valuing presence over performance. You want sincerity, not attention. Allah removes the need to impress and replaces it with the desire to connect truthfully. This shift brings inner calm. Noise often masks discomfort. When Allah removes your tolerance for noise, He invites healing. You are no longer running from yourself. You are learning to sit with your thoughts and feelings. You become selective with where you place your energy. Not everyone deserves access to your inner space. Allah teaches discernment by making shallow spaces feel uncomfortable. Protection comes through awareness. Depth requires vulnerability, and you are more open to it now. You prefer honest silence over fake connection. Allah strengthens the heart to handle truth gently. Entertainment loses its grip on you. Reflection gains importance. Allah redirects your focus from distraction to direction. This redirection is a sign of inner elevation. You feel closer to Allah in quiet moments. Loudness no longer brings relief. Allah invites you into a deeper relationship through stillness and sincerity. The heart responds with peace. You may feel lonely during this shift, but it is a temporary loneliness. Allah is clearing space for connections that align with your growth. Not all solitude is emptiness. You notice how deeply you value meaning now. You ask different questions. You seek different answers. Allah changes your curiosity before He changes your path. Depth makes you more patient. You listen more carefully. You respond more thoughtfully. Allah refines character through awareness, not instruction. You stop tolerating conversations that drain your soul. This is not rejection of others. It is acceptance of your own needs. Allah teaches self-respect through alignment. You begin to recognize that noise once filled a void that no longer exists. Allah has filled that space with understanding. The heart no longer needs constant distraction. This craving for depth signals growth. Allah is preparing you for a higher version of yourself. When the heart matures, it seeks substance over sound. Craving depth over noise is not a phase. It is a transition. Allah is guiding your heart toward what truly matters. You feel lonely even when surrounded by people, and this loneliness feels confusing at first. Laughter exists around you. Conversations continue, yet something inside you feels distant. It is not sadness in the usual sense. It is a quiet awareness that your soul is no longer fully present where your body is. Allah allows this feeling to signal inner growth. This loneliness does not come from lack of company. It comes from lack of alignment. You are present, but your heart is not nourished. Allah shows you that connection without resonance still leaves the soul empty. Togetherness alone is not enough anymore. You notice yourself withdrawing internally, even while staying outwardly polite. You listen, you smile, you respond, but something feels missing. This absence is not ingratitude. It is discernment awakening inside you. Allah refines the heart by teaching it what no longer feeds it. Being around people begins to feel draining instead of comforting. You leave gatherings feeling heavier rather than lighter. Allah uses this exhaustion to reveal emotional mismatches. What once energized you now depletes you because you have grown beyond it. This loneliness is subtle and private. Others may not notice it at all, but you feel it deeply when the noise fades. Allah allows you to feel alone in crowds, so you stop confusing presence with connection. You begin to realize that your soul has moved ahead of certain relationships. You are no longer standing at the same emotional or spiritual place. Allah does not force others to grow with you. He simply allows the distance to become noticeable. There is grief in this realization. You mourn the ease you once felt with people you still care about. Allah allows this grief so you release gently, without resentment. Growth requires emotional honesty. You may question yourself, wondering if something is wrong with you, but Allah reassures the heart through time. Loneliness here is not rejection. It is redirection toward deeper alignment. You crave understanding more than attention now. Being seen matters less than being understood. Allah teaches you that real connection is rare and sacred. Not every space is meant to hold your evolving heart. This loneliness pushes you inward. You begin spending more time with your thoughts, reflecting on what truly matters. Allah draws you closer to yourself so you can reconnect with Him more deeply. You notice that silence feels safer than forced interaction. You would rather be alone than feel unseen among many. Allah teaches you to honor your emotional truth instead of ignoring it. The loneliness sharpens your awareness. You see which relationships are based on habit rather than harmony. Allah reveals truth gently, through feeling rather than confrontation. You may still care deeply for those around you, but you no longer feel rooted there. Allah shows you that love does not always mean belonging. Seasons change without erasing respect. This phase feels uncomfortable because it sits between what was and what will be. Allah allows this in-between space so you do not rush into replacements before healing occurs. Loneliness becomes a teacher. It shows you where you have outgrown emotional patterns. Allah uses discomfort to guide transformation without force. You start valuing quality over quantity in connection. One meaningful interaction now feels richer than many shallow ones. Allah recalibrates the heart's needs through awareness. You become more honest with yourself about what you feel. Pretending no longer works. Allah removes the ability to fake belonging once growth begins. This loneliness protects you from settling. If comfort remained, you would stay where you no longer belong. Allah disrupts comfort to guide elevation. You may not yet know where you belong next. That uncertainty feels heavy, but Allah does not reveal the next door until you stop standing in the old one. Loneliness around people teaches independence. You learn to be whole without relying on external validation. Allah strengthens your inner foundation. What feels like isolation is actually alignment in progress. Allah is separating you from what no longer matches your growth. Feeling lonely, even among people, is not a failure of connection. It is a sign of transition. Allah is preparing you for spaces where your soul will finally feel at home. There comes a quiet moment when you realize you no longer chase people to stay. The urge to explain yourself, to fix misunderstandings, to prove your worth begins to fade. You notice the absence of panic where it once lived. Allah teaches your heart that what is meant to remain does not require pursuit. Peace replaces urgency. You stop sending messages just to keep connections alive. You no longer stretch yourself thin to maintain closeness. This change does not come from pride. It comes from clarity. Allah shows you that forced presence drains the soul more than distance ever could. Silence no longer frightens you. When someone pulls away, you allow the space to exist. You trust that what is real will not disappear because of quiet. Allah removes fear from the heart by strengthening trust in His plan. You begin to respect yourself differently. You no longer bargain with your dignity for companionship. Allah teaches self-worth by removing the need to be chosen repeatedly. Being at peace with yourself becomes enough. There was a time when distance felt like rejection. Now it feels like information. Allah uses distance to reveal who aligns naturally with your growth. You no longer chase clarity. You observe truth. You stop adjusting yourself to fit into spaces that resist you. Your heart grows tired of shrinking. Allah expands your sense of self, so you no longer accept emotional discomfort as normal. Letting people go no longer feels like loss. It feels like release. Allah eases the grip of attachment, so your heart can breathe. Freedom replaces anxiety. You notice how calm you feel when you stop chasing. There is relief in allowing things to unfold naturally. Allah teaches patience by removing desperation. Trust begins to settle in the heart. You no longer feel responsible for maintaining every relationship. Allah shows you that connection is mutual by nature. Effort that is one-sided drains the soul. This shift teaches emotional balance. You care deeply, but you do not cling. Allah refines love by removing fear from it. Love becomes steady instead of anxious. You stop fearing abandonment. You realize that what leaves was not meant to carry you forward. Allah replaces fear with faith in divine alignment. Distance no longer feels personal. You understand that people move according to their own seasons. Allah teaches acceptance through awareness rather than explanation. You feel stronger in your stillness. Not reacting becomes a form of strength. Allah trains the heart to respond with calm rather than impulse. You begin trusting Allah more than outcomes. You stop forcing doors open. You allow what closes to close. Allah teaches surrender through experience. Your energy becomes protected. You choose where to invest emotionally. Allah teaches boundaries by removing emotional exhaustion. You no longer chase closure. You accept endings without demanding understanding. Allah heals the heart by teaching it to release without bitterness. You find peace in knowing that alignment does not need pursuit. What is meant to stay will stay with ease. Allah replaces effort with flow. Your heart becomes lighter. The weight of constant effort dissolves. Allah lifts burdens you were never meant to carry. You stop measuring your worth by who stays. Allah anchors your value in faith, not validation. Confidence grows quietly. Letting go no longer feels like failure. It feels like wisdom. Allah teaches maturity through release. When you stop chasing people to stay, it is a sign of growth. Allah is teaching your heart to trust His timing over your attachment. Your values begin shifting quietly, without announcement or explanation. What once felt acceptable now feels uncomfortable, and what once felt important loses its urgency. You do not wake up one day deciding to change. The change happens beneath the surface. Allah reshapes the heart first, long before the life reflects it. This internal shift can feel confusing because nothing outside has changed yet. But inside, your compass has moved. And once values shift, everything else eventually follows. You start noticing what you can no longer tolerate. Small compromises that once felt harmless now feel heavy. Behaviors you once excused now disturb your peace. Allah raises your standards gently, not to make you judgmental, but to protect your soul. Growth often begins with discomfort toward what you once normalized. This discomfort is not weakness, it is awareness. Your priorities reorder themselves without force. You begin choosing rest over constant availability, integrity over popularity, calm over chaos. Allah teaches you that not everything deserves your energy. This realization does not come from ego, but from maturity, forming quietly within you. You stop spreading yourself thin to maintain appearances. Your heart seeks alignment instead. You begin valuing sincerity more than approval. Being liked matters less than being honest. Allah removes the desire to perform for people and replaces it with the desire to live truthfully. This can feel isolating at first, but it brings peace. When values shift, belonging changes, and Allah knows exactly where you belong next. Faith begins to weigh more in your decisions. You think before acting. You reflect before committing. Allah teaches you to consult your conscience instead of following habit. What once felt harmless now feels misaligned. This is not rigidity, it is clarity. You may notice a growing discomfort with environments that contradict your values. Places feel louder, conversations feel emptier. Allah sharpens your awareness so you stop confusing familiarity with suitability. What once felt normal now feels draining because your heart has outgrown it. Your tolerance for emotional inconsistency decreases. You stop excusing disrespect in the name of patience. Allah teaches you that patience does not require self-neglect. You learn to distinguish between endurance and endurance at your own expense. This lesson comes through lived experience, not advice. You start protecting your inner world more carefully. You think about what you consume, who you listen to, and where your attention goes. Allah teaches you that the heart absorbs more than the mind realizes. Protection becomes a form of worship. You guard your peace with intention. Your definition of success begins to change. You care less about how things look and more about how they feel before Allah. Allah redefines success as alignment, not achievement. This shift brings relief. You no longer chase what looks impressive, but feels empty. You notice a growing desire for consistency between your inner beliefs and outer actions. Hypocrisy, even unintentional, begins to weigh on you. Allah refines the soul by making misalignment uncomfortable. You seek coherence, not perfection. You become more selective with commitments. Saying no becomes easier, not because you care less, but because you care more about what truly matters. Allah teaches you that every yes costs something. Wisdom lies in choosing carefully. Your emotional responses soften as your values stabilize. You are less reactive, less defensive. Allah replaces emotional turbulence with grounded calm. You respond from principle rather than impulse. This stability is a sign of inner growth. You begin measuring relationships by how they support your values, not how long they have existed. History alone no longer justifies closeness. Allah teaches you that loyalty to truth matters more than loyalty to comfort. This realization can be painful, but it is freeing. You start choosing peace over proving a point. Being right feels less important than being at ease. Allah shifts your focus from winning arguments to preserving your heart. Silence becomes wisdom, not avoidance. Your sense of responsibility changes. You stop feeling obligated to fix everyone or everything. Allah teaches you limits. You learn that guidance belongs to Him, not you. This releases a heavy burden you did not realize you were carrying. You notice gratitude replacing entitlement. Small blessings feel significant. Allah reorients your heart toward appreciation rather than expectation. This shift deepens contentment. Your values begin guiding your decisions naturally. You no longer need constant reminders. Alignment feels intuitive. Allah writes guidance into your instincts through lived transformation. You may outgrow certain ambitions that once drove you. Goals shift from external validation to internal fulfillment. Allah refines your direction by refining your intention. You begin to respect yourself more deeply. You do not abandon your values to belong. Allah strengthens your sense of identity through consistency. This quiet shift in values marks a turning point. Allah is preparing you for a life that requires a stronger inner foundation. What you value determines where you can go. When your values change silently, it is a sign of elevation. Allah is not taking things away from you. He is aligning you with who you are becoming. People begin to misunderstand your change, and at first this feels unsettling. Those who knew the old version of you start questioning your silence, your distance, your calm. They sense that something is different, but they cannot name it. Allah allows this misunderstanding because growth is rarely visible from the outside. Transformation happens inwardly, long before it is recognized outwardly. Some people say you are not the same anymore, and they say it with confusion rather than curiosity. They remember how accessible you were, how accommodating, how predictable. Now you pause, you reflect, you choose carefully. Allah removes the need to be easily understood so you can be deeply aligned. Growth does not ask for permission. You may feel tempted to explain yourself, to reassure others that you are still the same at heart. But Allah teaches you restraint here. Not every change needs justification. Some evolutions are sacred and private. When you stop explaining, you protect what Allah is building within you. Misunderstanding often comes from those who benefited from the old version of you. Your boundaries feel like distance to them. Your silence feels like rejection. Allah allows this reaction so you can see clearly who was attached to your growth and who was attached to your availability. People may interpret your calm as coldness. They may confuse your peace with indifference. But Allah knows the difference. He knows how much work it took for your heart to arrive here. Being misunderstood is sometimes the cost of becoming whole. You realize that explaining yourself repeatedly drains you. Each explanation feels like a step backward. Allah teaches you that clarity does not always bring connection. Sometimes it only invites more confusion. Silence becomes a form of self-respect. There is a quiet strength in letting others misunderstand you. You stop correcting every assumption. Allah shows you that truth does not require constant defense. What is real will reveal itself with time. You may notice people projecting their discomfort onto your growth. Your change forces them to confront what they have not addressed within themselves. Allah allows this tension so you learn not to internalize reactions that are not yours. Misunderstanding can feel lonely. You miss being known the way you once were. But Allah reminds you that being known by Him is enough. Human understanding is limited, divine understanding is complete. You begin to accept that not everyone will recognize your evolution. Some only know how to relate to the version of you that no longer exists. Allah does not expect you to shrink to remain recognizable. There is grief in being misunderstood by those you care about. Allah allows this grief, so you release expectations gently. Growth often requires mourning old connections without resentment. You stop needing validation for your choices. Confidence replaces explanation. Allah strengthens your inner grounding so external opinions lose their power. People may accuse you of changing, as if change is betrayal. But Allah teaches you that stagnation is the real loss. Growth is obedience to the soul's development. You learn to sit comfortably in your truth, even when others cannot see it. Allah trains the heart to remain steady without applause or agreement. Misunderstanding filters your relationships. Those meant to grow with you will ask questions with sincerity. Others will fall away. Allah refines your circle through your evolution. You realize that being misunderstood does not mean being wrong. It means you have moved beyond familiar patterns. Allah guides you forward, not backward. You stop trying to make everyone comfortable with your growth. Allah did not elevate you to remain convenient. He elevated you to become aligned. There is peace in accepting that some people will never understand your journey. Allah teaches, surrender here. You release the need to be seen by everyone. Your growth becomes quieter, steadier, more rooted. Misunderstanding no longer shakes you. Allah anchors your identity in faith, not perception. Being misunderstood is not a sign of failure. It is often proof of transformation. Allah allows it because you are no longer living for approval. When people misunderstand your change, remember this: Allah understands it perfectly, and that understanding is what carries you forward.